Open your Nan's kitchen drawer and you would find a museum of things you throw away every single week. Rubber bands, string, folded paper bags. She was not hoarding. She was running a system so clever that number 12 on this list is now being sold back to you as an eco product for 15 quid. And number 3, charities are begging Britain to start doing it again. Hit subscribe, because by the end of this, your bin is going to feel very different. Let us count down from number 25. Number 25, wrapping paper. Christmas morning in a 1950s front room had rules, and the first rule was this: you did not tear. Your Nan sat with a butter knife, easing the sellotape off every present, while children hopped with impatience, because that sheet of paper cost 6p, and it was going to wrap something else next December. Once the presents were open, she smoothed each sheet flat, and later that week, she ran a cool iron over the creases and folded the lot into the sideboard drawer. Some sheets did 5 Christmases. Families could tell you which auntie's paper was which by the pattern. Robin's from 1953, Holly from 1957. Today, Britain bins enough wrapping paper every Christmas to stretch to the moon. Used once, torn in seconds, gone by Boxing Day. Your Nan would have looked at that and quietly reached for her butter knife. Number 24, brown paper and string. Before the jiffy bag, every parcel that arrived was a gift twice over. First the contents, then the packaging. Your granddad untied the knots carefully, never cut them, wound the string into a neat ball, and added it to the string tin. The brown paper was folded along its original creases and slid behind the bread bin. When something needed posting, out it all came again. A roll of new brown paper cost about a shilling, so a good sheet might cross the country 4 or 5 times, each journey recorded in crossed-out addresses. Some households kept a drawer famously labeled "string too short to be of any use," and even that was kept. It sounds absurd until you remember these were people who had posted parcels to sons at war. Nothing that could carry love through the letterbox was ever thrown away. Number 23, the button tin. Every British home had one, and it was almost always a biscuit tin, which is why 3 generations of children have been heartbroken by a quality street tin full of thread. Before any garment left the house as rags, your Nan sat with her scissors and harvested every button, every hook, every zip. Into the tin they went, decades of them, brass buttons from D-mob suits, tiny pearl ones from christening gowns, big leather ones from coats that had kept 3 children warm in turn. When a shirt lost a button, you did not buy a card of new ones at 9p. You tipped the tin onto the table and hunted for a match, and children were allowed to help, running their fingers through what felt like treasure. That tin was a family archive you could hold. Modern families throw away the shirt, buttons and all, and buy another for £8. Number 22. Jam jars. A glass jar entering a post-war kitchen never left it. Washed, the label soaked off in the sink, it began a second career that could outlast the marriage. Jars held homemade jam and chutney in autumn, obviously, but that was just the start. They held nails and screws in the shed, lined up on a shelf with the lids nailed to the underside of a plank so the jars screwed up into place, a trick every granddad seemed to know by instinct. They held paintbrushes in terps, tadpoles in spring, drippings in the pantry, and coppers for the gas meter. A jar of Robertson's cost around 1 3, and the jam was almost the free part. Today we recycle jars at best and bin them at worst, then spend £12 at a homeware shop on storage jars that do exactly the same job, slightly worse. Number 21. Elastic bands. The postman dropped them, and your Nan picked them up. Every rubber band that came wrapped around the post went straight onto the kitchen doorknob, and by 1960 that doorknob wore a sleeve of them an inch thick. They resealed opened packets, held the lid on the leftovers bowl, kept playing cards together, and fixed 1,000 small problems that today we solve with cling film and plastic clips. A packet of new bands cost real money, maybe 4p, and why would you spend 4p on something the Royal Mail delivered free? The doorknob was the system. Everyone in the house knew where a band lived and where it went back. Watch a modern family unwrap a bundle of post. The band goes in the bin before the envelopes are even open. 60 years ago, that was practically a crime against the household. Number 20. Milk bottle tops. The shiny foil cap on the morning pint was peeled off carefully, licked clean by whoever got there first, and dropped into a bag hanging on the back of the pantry door. Schools and churches collected them by the sackful for charity because the aluminium had scrap value, and children were sent in with bulging paper bags to be weighed like offerings. Guide dogs for the blind ran foil collections for decades, and many a British guide dog was quite literally funded one breakfast at a time. The bottles themselves went back on the step for the milkman, washed, to be refilled up to 20 times each. It was a closed loop before anyone had invented the phrase. Today, the plastic milk bottle does one journey, fridge to bin, and the whole elegant system survives only in the memory of anyone who remembers blue tits pecking the cream. Number 19. Envelopes and scrap paper. No envelope in a British home died on its first opening. Your nan slit them neatly with a knife, and the backs became the household's entire stationery supply. Shopping lists, phone messages, sums worked out for the coal bill, notes for the milkman, all written on the backs of envelopes, and important ones were tucked behind the clock on the mantelpiece, which served as the family filing cabinet. Larger envelopes were reused whole, the old address crossed out, a fresh stamp stuck on, and nobody thought it looked cheap because everybody did it. A writing pad cost about 8p, and 8p was a loaf. The phrase back of an envelope calculation exists because an entire nation actually did its calculations there. Modern homes buy sticky notes in 6 colors and still bin 40 envelopes a month without a second glance. Number 18. Newspaper. Yesterday's news was tomorrow's everything. A daily paper cost 2.5p in the mid-50s, and after it was read, it began its real work. Scrunched, it laid the fire each morning, and children learned to roll and knot sheets into firelighters that burned slow. Flat, it lined drawers and shelves, wrapped potato peelings, protected floors on decorating day, and padded parcels. Crumpled with a splash of vinegar, it polished windows to a shine that no modern spray matches, because the ink and paper together act as a mild polish, something cleaning brands would rather you forgot. It wrapped your fish and chips until the 1980s hygiene rules stopped it, and half the country still swears chips tasted better out of the Daily Mirror. One item, one purchase, a dozen jobs. Today, the news arrives on a phone, and we buy firelighters, drawer liners, glass wipes, and bubble wrap separately. Number 17. Soap slivers. A bar of soap was never finished, it just changed shape. When the tablet wore down to a sliver too thin to hold, it went into a jar by the sink, and when the jar filled, your nan pressed the damp slivers together into a new marbled bar, a patchwork of lifebuoy, pears, and imperial leather that lathered just fine. Some homes had a soap saver, a little wire cage on a handle. Fill it with scraps, swish it through the washing up water, and instant suds. A bar of soap cost around 7p, and a family that saved slivers got 13 bars for the price of 12, every year, forever. Modern liquid soap in plastic pump bottles costs 10 times more per wash and the last inch that the pump cannot reach gets thrown away, which is exactly the part your great-grandmother would have built next month's soap from. Number 16. Old toothbrushes. No toothbrush in Britain ever went from mouth to bin. It went from mouth to a jar under the sink, demoted but essential, and began a long second life as the finest cleaning tool ever invented. It scrubbed the grout between tiles, cleaned the silver's crevices before Sunday, got the mud out of football boot studs, cleaned the cheese grater, degreased bike chains, and applied shoe polish into the seams of your granddad's brogues. A new brush cost about £1, and its cleaning career often lasted longer than its dental one. This is one of those tricks so obviously right that cleaning influencers today film themselves doing it as though it were a revelation, racking up millions of views for knowledge your Nan considered too ordinary to mention. The jar under the sink knew it all along. Number 15. Margarine tubs and ice cream tubs. Ask any British child of the 70s about the great tub betrayal. You opened the ice cream tub in the freezer and found stew. You opened the margarine tub in the fridge and found leftover peas. Once plastic tubs arrived in kitchens, no family ever bought a food storage container again, because Stork and Walls provided an endless free supply. Tubs held leftovers, sandwiches for the works canteen, seedlings on the windowsill, Lego, fishing bait, and buttons that overflowed the button tin. The lids sealed, they stacked. They cost nothing. Then, in the 2000s, the storage industry convinced us matching container sets were a kitchen essential. And Britain now spends tens of millions a year on plastic boxes that do precisely what a washed-out tub of Vitalite did for free. Your Nan did not have a Tupperware cupboard. She had a margarine mountain, and it worked. Number 14. Christmas cards. Twelfth Night in your Nan's house was not just about taking decorations down, it was harvest time. Every card received that year was sorted, and the ones with good pictures met the scissors. The front panel, Robin, snow scene, stagecoach, was cut down and became next year's gift tags, a hole punched in the corner, a bit of saved wool threaded through. The plain backs became shopping lists. Some fronts were cut with pinking shears into new, smaller cards entirely, sent on to someone who had not sent the original. A box of tags cost maybe 9p, and no one in living memory had ever bought one. It was thrift, but it was also a quiet craft. An hour at the kitchen table with tea and scissors while the wireless played. Modern families bin around 1 billion cards each January. Tags and all, then buy tags in packs of 50. Number 13. Candle stubs. When a candle burned too low to light safely, it did not die. It went into the candle box. Power cuts were a fact of British life, from post-war shortages right through to the 3-day week of 1974, when the whole country ate tea by candlelight, so wax was strategic material. When enough stubs gathered, your Nan melted them in an old saucepan kept for the purpose, fished out the spent wicks, and poured the wax into an egg cup or jam jar around a length of string, making a new candle from the corpses of 6 old ones. Children were allowed to watch, never to stir. Wax also polished furniture, lubricated stuck drawer runners, and waterproofed the string on brown paper parcels. A packet of candles cost about 6p, but the real point was independence. When the lights went out, that house was ready. Here is the second thing nobody tells you. Several entries on this list are now sold back to us, rebranded and priced up. Which brings us to number 12. Number 12. Wire coat hangers. Free from every dry cleaner, and in your granddad's hands, one of the most versatile tools ever to enter a British home. Untwisted, a wire hanger unblocked drains, retrieved things dropped behind the wardrobe, toasted bread and crumpets over the fire when bent into a fork, propped up drooping plants, cleared the vacuum hose, and for a certain generation, opened locked car doors on more than one embarrassing Sunday. Left as a hanger, it hung the washing on the line when pegs ran out and dried jumpers flat when hooked over the bath. Today you can buy a drain snake for £8, a toasting fork for $15, a plant support for $6, and a flexible grabber tool for $12. That is over £40 of gadgets replaced by one piece of wire that came free with your trousers. This is why your granddad never let a hanger leave the house. Number 11. Pop bottles. Every child in Britain from the 30s to the 70s ran the same business, and the currency was glass. Corona, Tizer, and lemonade bottles carried a deposit, threepence a bottle at the height of it, refundable at any shop, and children scoured hedgerows, building sites, and neighbours' back steps for empties, the way prospectors panned for gold. 3 bottles was 9pence, and 9pence was the pictures with change for sweets. The Corona lorry collected the empties, the bottles were washed and refilled dozens of times, and the system taught an entire nation's children that rubbish had value, that you got money back for putting things where they belonged. The deposits quietly vanished as plastic took over in the 80s. Britain has spent the last decade trying to reintroduce a deposit return scheme, with politicians announcing it like a bold new idea. Every pensioner in the country could have explained it in one sentence. Number 10. Egg boxes. An egg box in the 50s belonged to the greengrocer, not to you. You carried your half-dozen home, and next week you carried the box back to be refilled, and the ritual repeated until the cardboard finally gave out. When a box did retire from egg duty, it still was not finished. The dimpled trays started seedlings on every windowsill in Britain, 1 seed per cup, planted out cardboard and all because it rotted into the soil. They stored Christmas baubles safely in the loft, organized screws in the shed, and, stapled to walls in their hundreds, soundproofed many a teenage drum practice. Some corner shops offered a halfpenny back per returned box, pocket money for observant children. Today the boxes are technically recyclable and mostly binned, and garden centres will happily sell you a plastic seed tray for £4 that does the job worse. Number 9. Stockings and tights. When a stocking laddered beyond saving, it entered its prime. Nylons were expensive, around 4 shillings a pair, precious enough during the war that women drew fake seams up their legs with gravy browning, so no British woman binned one lightly. Laddered stockings stored onions in the pantry. 1 onion dropped in, a knot tied, another onion, another knot, hung from a hook so air circulated and nothing rotted, and you snipped off onions 1 knot at a time all winter. They tied tomato plants to canes because the soft nylon never cut the stems, something garden twine still cannot manage. Stuffed with soap scraps, they became bath scrubbers. Stuffed with old fabric, they became draft excluders. Stretched over a bent hanger, they made a net for skimming the pond. Gardening magazines today recommend buying soft plant ties at £3 a roll. Your Nan's underwear drawer did it free. Number 8. Tea leaves. Before the tea bag conquered Britain in the 70s, every pot ended with a clump of used leaves, and those leaves worked a second shift. Scattered damp over the carpet and swept up, they collected dust and freshened the pile. Standard practice in every home that could not afford a vacuum, and plenty that could. Sprinkled round the roses, they fed the soil. Cold tea itself cleaned mirrors and polished dark wood furniture, and a splash went on the aspidistra, which is partly why every parlour palm in Britain survived decades of neglect. Used leaves even scoured greasy pans before washing up liquid was common. A quarter pound of loose tea cost around 1 6, and squeezing 3 jobs from it after the drinking was simply good housekeeping. Modern Britain drinks 100 million cuppers a day and bins every single bag, then buys carpet freshener, plant feed and wood polish in separate bottles. Number 7. Bath water. Sunday was bath night, and the water was a family resource, not a personal one. The immersion heater cost real money to run, so one tub of hot water served everyone. Cleanest first, usually youngest to oldest, topped up with a kettle between sittings, and if you were last in, you learned to be quick. When the last person climbed out, the water still was not finished. Buckets carried it down to the garden for the vegetables, or it soaked the doorstep for scrubbing, or sluiced the outside privy. During the droughts, most famously the scorching summer of 1976 when the government appointed an actual minister for drought, the whole nation revived the habit overnight, siphoning bathwater onto flower beds with a hose pipe out the window. Water companies today issue leaflets encouraging grey water reuse as an innovative sustainability measure. Innovative. Your Nan had a name for it. She called it Sunday. Number 6. Old clothes into rags. In your Nan's house, clothing had an afterlife with more stages than a state funeral. A shirt too worn for church became a shirt for work. Too worn for work, it went to gardening. Too worn for gardening, the buttons were harvested for the tin, and the fabric was cut into squares, and those squares became the entire cleaning infrastructure of the home. Soft cotton polished windows and mirrors. Flannelette dusted the sideboard. Old towels washed the car and dried the dog. Woolens too far gone stuffed draft excluders. The rag bag hung on the cellar door, sorted by fabric, and reaching for a new cloth meant reaching into it. Today, Britain sends around 300,000 tons of clothing to landfill every year while simultaneously spending millions on packets of disposable wipes and microfiber cloths. Your Nan's rag bag was a cleaning aisle that cost nothing and never ran out. Number 5. Darning. A hole in a sock was not the end of the sock. It was Tuesday evening's work. Every woman, and plenty of men taught in the forces, owned a darning mushroom, a smooth wooden dome that stretched the sock's heel taut, while a needle wove new fabric across the hole, warp then weft, until the gap became a small woven patch, stronger than the original knit. Wool for darning cost pennies, and socks cost around 2 shillings a pair, so a sock might be darned 5, 6, 7 times, some ending their lives more darn than sock. The skill was taught in schools, examined in domestic science, and practiced by firelight with the wireless on. It was also quietly meditative, an hour of small, precise work at the end of a loud day. Today a hole means the bin, and the average British sock lives a few months. Your great-grandmother had socks older than your marriage. Number 4. Unraveling jumpers. When a jumper was outgrown or worn through at the elbows, your Nan performed a small act of resurrection. She found the cast-off edge, snipped and pulled, and the entire garment unraveled back into yarn, children holding their arms out as human bobbins while she wound the crinkled wool into skeins. Washed and hung with a weight to pull the kinks out, the wool was reborn, and next month it was a smaller jumper for the next child down, or mittens, or socks, or squares for a blanket. During the war, the government made it official policy, with make-do and mend leaflets teaching the nation to unpick and reknit. But the habit long outlived the emergency, because new wool cost around 1 shilling an ounce, and a jumper took 10 ounces. One purchase of wool could clothe a family for a decade in different shapes. Today, hand-knitting yarn costs more than a finished jumper from Primark, which tells you everything about what we decided to value. Number 3. Old sheets, turned sides to middle. A bed sheet wears out in the middle first, where bodies lie, while the edges stay strong for years, and your Nan refused to bin a sheet that was 2/3 perfect. So she turned its sides to middle, cut the sheet down the worn center, swapped the halves so the strong outer edges met in the middle, and sewed a new seam. The sheet was reborn with years more life. And yes, you slept on the ridge, and no, Nobody complained twice. When a sheet finally failed even that, it was demoted in stages, cot sheets, ironing board covers, dust sheets for decorating, straining cloths for jam, and at the very end, bandages and slings, which is why charities and hospitals once relied on donated linen. Today, several charities openly appeal for old sheets for animal shelters and struggle to get them, because modern families bin bedding in the weekly rubbish. A sheet in 1955 died of old age at 30. A sheet today dies at 3, with 2/3 of its life unlived. Number 2. Hand-me-downs. No garment in post-war Britain belonged to a child. It belonged to a family, and the child was merely its current custodian. Coats traveled down through 3 siblings and then across the street to the neighbors' kids, let down and taken up at each stop. Hems released an inch at a time as legs grew, the old crease lines wearing the history of every previous owner like tree rings. School uniforms were bought 2 sizes big and grown into, sleeves rolled, then rolled less, then let down. Shoes were the only exception if the budget allowed, but Wellingtons and Sunday best did the full circuit. A child's winter coat cost upwards of 30 shillings, a serious sum against a weekly wage of around £7, so a coat serving 4 children was not meanness, it was mathematics. And here is the thing, modern parents rediscovering second-hand apps are learning. The children did not suffer. They belonged. Wearing your brother's coat meant you had a brother. And number 1, the rag rug. Every entry on this list ends here, because the rag rug was where a British home's textiles went to be reborn one final time. Coats beyond handing down, trousers beyond patching, jumpers beyond unraveling, all were cut into short strips, and on winter evenings the whole family gathered round a stretched piece of hessian, often a washed sugar sack, pushing strips through the weave with a wooden peg or a hook, row after row, until a thick, springy rug emerged from what other decades would call rubbish. In mining villages and mill towns, a new rug was prodied each year for the hearth, the old one demoted to the back door, the one before that to the dog. The colours told your family's story. There is Dad's old overcoat, there is the dress Mum wore to the Coronation Street party. It cost nothing but evenings, and those evenings were the point. Hands busy, wireless on, everyone round one lamp. Handmade rag rugs now sell in craft fairs and country living shops for £80 and more, sold as rustic heritage pieces. Your family made them from their own worn-out lives and then stood on them every morning in front of the fire. So here is my challenge. Pick one. Just one. A jar you would have binned, a toothbrush, the backs of your envelopes, and give it the second life your Nan would have given it automatically. Then come back and tell me in the comments which one you chose and whether your grandmother's house had a button tin, because I want to know if it was a Quality Street tin or a Roses tin. These were not habits of poverty. They were habits of respect, for money, for materials, and for the work that made things. Your Nan knew. Now you know too.